When I share my AI-assisted art images that I make, I get many requests of people asking me how I made them and to show my process, which is the purpose of me making this video. This is an original character of mine based on an old drawing I made in high school that I since enhanced with AI. Inspired by the anime sword girl archetype, this character uses a medieval sword and techniques. The challenge in this video is to make a much more dynamic image of this character with a more complex pose, crouching and conveying motion, holding a very accurate medieval sword that's also on a complex angle that will look to be leaping out to the viewer on perspective. We're going to give her more emotion in facial expression and match this character's specific design. This type of image is basically impossible to achieve with AI through a single prompt and will require multiple techniques, extensions, and additional artistic tools such as 3D modeling and illustration. I'll be using Stable Diffusion Automatic 1111, as well as Clip Studio for pose, SketchUp for the 3D model of the sword, and Photoshop for many manual edits. I usually start with a hand-drawn sketch in these challenges, but this time I wanted to experiment with a posable model which I used through Clip Studio and a sword model that I had made. With the pose made, the next step is to add basic color. I'm not adding her outfit yet as her uniform has very puffy sleeves and a skirt which can confuse the AI process and muddle her desired pose. So to keep the pose consistent and clear, she's going to be wearing sportswear to begin with. The sword will also confuse the AI, so we'll be removing it at this stage as well to focus only on the pose. With a clean pose guide, we can more easily put it into ControlNet and use either canny, open pose, or depth to lock it in and make the first generations according to the prompt. After several generations, I find one that works really well, especially since it looks like the camera is tilted on an angle which gives it a more dynamic look. We will then correct several details manually in Photoshop to guide the AI further. We increase the resolution to 2000 by 2000 pixels, which is now too large for my GPU to generate in whole, so I in-paint smaller sections to get more accurate control over the design and increase the details and find the designs I want. With a specific facial expression in mind, I tweak the prompt multiple times in between each generation to guide it towards the facial expression I'm after. Now I generate the torso and arms into a higher resolution and correct the head size. I separate the hands from the image and background. This is so I can generate them separately and the AI can focus on them without getting warped or confused with other elements in the image. Once I generate better hands, I add them to the main image within Photoshop. Next, I generate better legs, feet, and hair ribbons through the in-painting tool of Stable Diffusion. With the facial expression, hand, pose, and background finalized, it's now time to add the primary guide for her outfit, which I paint on manually through Photoshop, shading it to give the AI a stronger guide. Through in-painting, I generate the shirt and skirt separately and then combine them both in Photoshop. It's now time to bring in the sword, which I've previously modeled within SketchUp. I pick the angle I want, export the image, bring it into Stable Diffusion and generate the blade. Swords are still one of the most difficult things the AI struggles with, and keeping the hilt geometrically consistent is nearly impossible, even with ControlNet. So I'm going to be using the 3D modeled hilt with Stable Diffusion's enhanced color for the blade, and add them to the image in Photoshop. And lastly, I correct the lighting to match the background and highlights and then increase the resolution. And after about 4 hours work, we have the final image, and I personally think I was able to achieve the desired goals. I'm very happy with this image. A much more dynamic pose, facial expression, complex sword angle while keeping the sword accurate in its design and shape, and remaining consistent with the character's overall design and look. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.